Welcome back. Well, that wraps up night number 2 of the NFL Draft, rounds 2 and 3. I'm going to do a little recap of both round 2 and round 3 since since now this is going to be the last segment to wrap this up. Round 2, the Cincinnati Bengals took T. Higgins, wide receiver of Clemson. I thought that was a good move. And with pick 33, pick 34 in round 2, Michael Pittman, Indianapolis took wide receiver out of USC. With the 35th pick, the Detroit Lions took DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia, and I thought that was a good move for them. They needed a running back. With the 36th pick in the draft, the New York Giants took Xavier McKinney, safety Alabama, and they needed a safety. With the 37th pick in the draft, New England Patriots got that one from the Chargers. They traded that to New England. They got Kyle Duggar, safety out of Lenoir-Rhyne. With the 38th pick, the Carolina Panthers got Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end, Penn State. And I think Carolina needed that. They needed a defensive end. And then with the 39th pick, Miami got Robert Hunt, defensive end, Penn State. Houston, the 40th pick, Houston got Ross Blacklock, defensive tackle, Penn State, and Rob Hunt's a defensive end for TCU, but that's who Ross Blacklock is from. Robert Hunt's from the defensive end, Penn State, from Miami, 39th pick. And those were good moves by both of those teams. And 41, the Browns traded that to Indianapolis. They got Jonathan Taylor, the Colts got, running back out of Wisconsin. With the number 42 pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars got Lavisk Shenault, wide receiver, Colorado. With the 43rd pick, Chicago got Cole Kmet, tight end, Notre Dame. With the 44th pick in the draft, which the Browns traded up for, they got Grant Delpit, safety of LSU, and I thought that was a good move for the Browns because the Browns need a safety in the backfield on the defensive side of the ball, and because they lacked on that last year. For the 45th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took Anton Winfield Jr., safety out of Minnesota. With the 46th pick, the Denver Broncos took KG Handler, defensive tackle, Penn State. With the 47th pick, the Atlanta Falcons took Marlon Davidson, defensive tackle, Auburn. With the 48th pick, the Seattle Seahawks took Darrell Taylor, offensive linebacker, Tennessee. With the 49th pick, Chase Claypool, wide receiver, Notre Dame. With the 50th pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears took Jalen Johnson, CB, cornerback, Alabama. With the 51st pick, the Dallas Cowboys took Trevon Diggs, CB, cornerback, Alabama. And that was a good move because Dallas needs a cornerback. And with the 52nd pick, the LA Rams took Cam Ollisers, running back, Florida State. With the 53rd pick in the draft, the Philadelphia Eagles took the 53rd pick. They took Jalen Hurts, quarterback, Oklahoma, and they needed to take a quarterback. I'm sorry, I stumbled a little bit there. With the 54th pick, the Buffalo Bills took AJ Espenza, defensive end, Iowa, and I think they needed to take him. They need a defensive end on the defensive side of the ball. Baltimore, with the 55th pick, took J.K. Dobbins, running back out of Ohio State. That was another Buckeye that went off the board. The 56th pick, Miami took Bacon Davis. Defensive tackle, Alabama. With the 57th pick, the LA Rams took Van Jefferson, wide receiver, Florida, and they needed to take a wide receiver. They needed that. With the 58th pick, the Minnesota Vikings took Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle, Boise State. My buddy Keith and I agreed on that they needed to take an offensive tackle. With the 60th pick in the draft, the New England Patriots took Josh huge offensive linebacker of Michigan, and they needed to take an offensive linebacker. With the 62nd pick, and the Green Bay Packers took A.J. Dillon, running back, Boston College, and I think Green Bay needed to take a running back. I think that was a good move for them. With the 63rd pick, the Kansas City Chiefs took Willie Gay, linebacker of Mississippi State, and I thought that was a good move for KC. They needed to take that. With the 64th pick, to wrap up the second round, the Carolina Panthers took Jeremy Chen, safety out of Southern Illinois, and they needed to take a safety. They needed that. With the and now round 3 of the 65th pick in the draft, the Cincinnati Bengals took Logan Wilson, inside linebacker, Wyoming, and they needed inside linebacker. They do. With the 67th pick in the draft, the 66th pick, excuse me, and before that, the Washington Redskins took Antonio Gibson, wide receiver in Memphis, and they needed to take that. My buddy Keith agreed with me on that. Washington needed that because they lacked on some plays there and some protection there. Now, 67th pick, the Detroit Lions took Jillian Okava, offensive linebacker, Notre Dame, and they needed to do that because they needed help in a lot of positions. With the 68th pick, the Jets took Ashton Davis, safety out of California, and they need a safety. They need help in a lot of areas too, and they lacked on that last year. A safety for for their quarterback to help protect their quarterback. With the 69th pick, Damian Lewis out of LSU, the Seattle Seahawks took him, and I think that was a good choice for them. They needed a guard out of that. With the 70th pick in round 3, Miami took Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas, and I think Miami needed to do that. They needed a safety as well because they lacked on that position, and they just did not have a good safety on their team last year, and they needed that. With the 71st pick, the Baltimore Ravens took Justin Mett, an offensive tackle out of Texas A&M, and they needed to do that. They needed an offensive tackle. With the 72nd pick, the Arizona Cardinals took Josh Jones, offensive tackle out of Houston, and I think that was a good choice for them. They needed to do that. Jacksonville, for 73rd pick, took Devon Hamilton, offensive tackle, Ohio State. That was another Ohio State Buckeye that went off the board. The Browns traded the 74th pick for number 88 to the New Orleans Saints. They got Zach Baum, offensive linebacker, Wisconsin, and I think they need that was a good move for New Orleans to get that. And with the 75th pick, the Detroit Lions took Jonah Jackson, guard out of Ohio State. There was another Buckeye off the board. And I think Detroit needed a guard because they needed, as I said, they need help in a lot of positions. With the 76th pick, excuse me, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took Keyshawn Vaughn, running back out of Vanderbilt, and they needed to take a running back because I think they needed another running back as a backup for their one that plays on a regular basis. With the 77th pick, the Denver Broncos took Michael Jamuta, quarterback out of Iowa, and I thought that was a good choice for them because they needed a quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons with the 78th pick took Matt Hennessy, center out of Tempe, and they need a center. Atlanta needed a center because they lacked that last year. The center they had just was not good last year. And the Las Vegas Raiders took the Lynn Bowden, wide receiver out of Kentucky, and they needed a wide receiver. And then the New England Patriots traded for the 87th pick, and they took actually the Jets for the 79th pick. Excuse me, I'll get to that in a minute. Right now, Jabari Zunga, defensive in Florida, now number 80, and I thought the Jets needed a defensive end for the defensive side of the ball. Now number 80, the Las Vegas Raiders took Lynn Bowden, wide receiver out of Kentucky, and I thought that was a good choice for them, and they needed that. And now they traded with the Jets for the 81st pick, and they got Brian Edwards, wide receiver out of South Carolina, and then they needed a couple of wide receivers, the Las Vegas Raiders, because they're going to need that, I think, when they make their debut as the Las Vegas Raiders when the 2020 season begins in September. With the 82nd pick, the Dallas Cowboys took Neville Gilmore, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, and I thought they needed to do that. They needed a defensive tackle. With the 84th pick, the Los Angeles Rams, actually the 83rd pick, excuse me, the Denver Broncos took Lloyd Cushenberry, center out of LSU, and they needed a center. They needed a center to. The one they had just I thought it was fair, but it wasn't the greatest. This is I think they needed to take a center. With the 84th pick in the third round, the LA Rams, excuse me, took Terrell Lewis, offensive linebacker, Alabama, and I thought that was a good choice. They needed to take that. They needed an offensive linebacker for some quarterback protection on the offensive side of the ball. With the 85th pick, the Indianapolis Colts took Jillian Blackman, safety out of Utah. And Indianapolis needs a safety. I had a feeling they were going to take that. With the 86th pick in the draft, Buffalo took Zach Moss, running back out of Utah, excuse me. And I thought that was a good choice. I really feel that they needed to take that. They needed a running back out of Utah because Buffalo's running back they had was fair from last year, but they needed a better one. I think this one's going to be a better one. With the 87th pick, the New England Patriots took Anthony Jennings, offensive linebacker, Alabama, and I thought that was a good choice because New England needs an offensive linebacker, and there's one they had last year was good but could have been better. Now with the 88th pick, the Browns took Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle out of Missouri, and I think that's what we needed. The Browns needed a defensive tackle, and they picked a good one out of Missouri. With the 89th pick, the Minnesota Vikings took Cameron Denser, cornerback, Mississippi State. With the 90th pick in the draft, the Houston Texans took Jonathan Greenard, offensive linebacker, Florida. I was surprised but wasn't surprised. I think the Houston needs an offensive linebacker. They need one, so it was good they took one. And New England Patriots, who traded with the the Giants for the 91st pick, they got Devin Asai, tight end out of UCLA, and they need a tight end. I think the New England needed a better tight end. The one they had is good, but they need a good backup tight end though too. The Baltimore Ravens with the 92nd pick took Devin Duvernay, wide receiver out of Texans. I thought that was a good choice, and they needed to do that. With the 93rd pick, the Tennessee Titans took Darrington Evans, running back Plykin, and I think they Plykin, well, and I think Tennessee needed to take a running back, and I think they need one for on the I think the defensive side of the ball, and to really help out the defense. With the 94th pick in the draft, the Green Bay Packers took Josiah DeGuara, tight end out of Cincinnati, and they needed a tight end. With the 95th pick, Denver took McTelvin Graham, defensive tackle out of Arkansas. With the 96th pick overall, the Kansas City Chiefs took Lucas Nang, offensive tackle, TCU. With the 97th pick, the Browns took Jacob Phillips, inside linebacker, LSU, and that's what they needed to do. They needed an inside linebacker because they need a really on the defensive side of the ball for that, and even on the offensive side. With the 98th pick, the Baltimore Ravens took Malik Harrison, inside linebacker out of Ohio State. There was another Ohio State. There were 7 Ohio State Buckeyes that are now off the board. And the Giants took Matt Pert with the 99th. Offensive tackle, UConn, 100th, the Raiders. Tanner Moose, Clemson, a safety, 101. Dayton Keene, New England, was tight end out of Virginia Tech. 102, Pittsburgh, Alex Highsmith, offensive linebacker, Charlotte. 103, Philly, Devon Taylor, offensive linebacker, Colorado. 104, LA Rams. Terrell Burgess, safety out of Utah. 105, New Orleans. They took and they traded with Minnesota for that one. Adam Troutman, TE Dayton, and last but not least, Baltimore with 106 to wrap it up. Tyree Phillips, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. Now that was a good choice. Well, this is going to wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the draft with my buddy Keith Norman. So until then, always remember, be a team player each and every day and every way possible. So long, everybody. 3, 2, 1.